Ever had a great idea for a film, but halfway through explaining the story, the narrative didn't work and you lost momentum? Well, that definitely happens to real films too. Sometimes a writer's block prohibits a logical development and a ham-fisted bit of dialogue is waved in to force the story along. Other times the quality of the film drops and you start to see where the filmmakers stopped caring for their project. So with that in mind then, I'm Ellie with What Culture here with 10 exact moments movies stopped trying. Number 10. The twin reveal in Night Hunter. Night Hunter is a film that had some potential. It was a serial killer manhunt movie with top-draw actors and a few compelling twists and turns. The film follows cops and vigilantes tracking a serial killer who is capturing, mutilating, and then murdering their victims. When the prime suspect is caught red-handed, the cops and audience are confused to find he has an affliction that would make it hard for him to commit such horrific acts. Through a series of convoluted sequences, the suspect is released, but then recaptured, only this time he isn't as naive. Does the suspect have split personalities like Primal Fear, or is it a shady character in the police helping the killer? It doesn't matter. At the end of the second act, it's revealed that there is literally an evil twin committing the killings, and the afflicted twin is just an oblivious accomplice. This would have been a neat twist if there was some moments that compel us to re-watch the film and point out where we were duped, like The Prestige. Instead, it feels like writer and director David Raymond wrote himself into a corner and had to double down on the silliness from then on. Number 9. Vision's birth in Avengers Age of Ultron. It's no secret that Joss Whedon's second Avengers collaboration was not a pleasant one. By studio interference and pushes from executives to include story devices and set pieces that set up future films, the stress and lack of creative freedom endured did show in the final cut. While Thor's dip in the exposition pool might be argued as the laziest moment of the film, a mental image of Joss giving up and giving in seemed more realistic when he had to cram in the birth of the character Vision before the film's third act. Not all movies stop trying because the writer gave up or got writer's block. Sometimes pressure from the studios can squash them into submission, even if it doesn't make sense. From a story perspective, the birth of Vision should have come sooner in the film, but clearly Joss wasn't ready to add in another hero just as he was turning Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch over to the good side. Number 8. Abby is possessed by a ghost in Ghostbusters. The 2016 all-female reboot of Ghostbusters didn't get off to a good start when, before it even came out, it drew criticism from fans nostalgic to the original titles, as well as the torrid sexist abuse the film suffered simply because it consisted of female leads. The film's cast was solid, 4 Saturday Night Live alumni leading the script with experiences in comedy and improv going back decades. It almost makes you wonder if the film needed a script, and instead just film the actresses riff for an hour and a half. But alas, a script was written and the cast did what they could to stand by it. One scene midway through the film shows Abby possessed by a demonic spirit and begin attacking the other Ghostbusters. The scene is chock full of possession cliches, including head spins, lifting characters up from the ground with one arm, and speaking with a deep voice. What's frustrating is that this scene does nothing to further the plot. Abby isn't possessed for very long, and it doesn't trip up the story or the Ghostbusters themselves in any way. It's a pointless sequence that proves the writing wasn't fishing for any original or unique ideas. Number 7. Wichita and Little Rock leave in Zombieland 2. Now there's a lot to pick apart with Zombieland's sequel, but it's healthy to remind yourself that it's a Zombieland sequel and it's really not worth the effort. What's the problem? Well, it feels like the script was written shortly after the first one came out, and no one considered rewriting or revisiting some of the dialogue. 2009 jokes about hippie communes, ditzy blondes, and Elvis obsessions reek throughout the sequel. When our 4 leads claim the White House for their own, it gives protagonist Columbus pause, and he asks Wichita to move forward in their relationship. Wichita freaks out and accuses Columbus as getting too close to her. The next morning, she and Little Rock have left Columbus and Tallahassee in a scene reminiscent of the first film. What's confusing about this movie is that it's established Columbus and Wichita have been together for 10 years now, and Wichita is worried Columbus is getting too close to her. They've been together for 10 years, not 10 days. Number 6. The third puzzle in Ready Player One. The setup for the film is simple. A community of video gamers must solve 3 separate puzzles in order to win a vast fortune and control over the intense virtual reality world. In between the video game and movie nostalgia, the film finds time to give audiences a narrative and action set piece around 2 of 3 of the puzzles. That's right, only 2 puzzles have clues. In the film's third act, the location of the third puzzle is revealed without any mystery clues to solve. The film rushes to the climactic battle in a gothic fortress, and all the audience has to go by is that the film's antagonist, IOI, worked out the third clue and located the challenge. This news comes to us from the character who heard this information on the grapevine. This movie had time for a Saturday Night Fever dance sequence and a real-world romance subplot, but not enough time to create a third riddle for the heroes to work out. It's a sign the filmmakers stopped trying when they couldn't be bothered to write a third puzzle, and instead just fast-forwarded to the smash 'em up it had been building up to and teasing in the trailers. Number 5. To save the world, we must destroy it in Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Can we just make a rule that baddies cannot use the "we must tear down this old world to build a better one" logic for their evil schemes? The scene was foreshadowed earlier on when forces led by Alan Jonah kill all the Monarch scientists except Emma and force her to activate the Orca to free King Ghidorah. The logic and steps of this villain don't make sense, especially in the current climate of a healing world. The character of Emma wants to unleash a world-ending monster army to save it. The character arc would have been far more compelling had Emma resented Godzilla, rightly so, after she and Mark lost their son during the events of the first film. And as a means to get revenge on everyone's favourite sea-dormant lizard, she goes on a revenge mission to find a creature powerful enough to kill him. The use of a character like hers radicalized to become a zealous eco-warrior who believes turning the world to ash so humanity can rise in a new world not only doesn't make sense, but it's so two-dimensional it's not courageous from a narrative perspective anymore. Number 4. My name is Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness. Even casual Star Trek fans could toot their own horns about how they saw the twist about Benedict Cumberbatch's character coming before they even sat down in the cinemas. And while it's a cheap win to pat yourself on the back over that easy guess, the reveal does inhabit a far worse revelation. Up until this point, there was an intriguing mystery behind the character and where the story might go. From John Harrison recruiting desperate parents to martyr themselves, to Kirk hot-headedly championing a manhunt for the fugitive, it seemed like the sequel to the 2009 flick was going to take some curious turns. Once John Harrison reveals himself to be Khan, the entire film shifts into cliches and rehashes. Peter Weller is revealed to be a war lobbyist, Kirk and Khan replay a less interesting version of the skydive from the first film, and a modernized version of the Wrath of Khan's scream is bellowed out to embarrassing uproar. Number 3. The Brontosaurus' death in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Or was it a Brachiosaurus? Who cares? The writer certainly didn't. Immediately, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom feels like 2 films with one half taking place on the dying Isla Nublar and the other half taking place in a mansion that hosts illegal dinosaur auctions. Neither act is that nail-biting, but a film set on the original Jurassic Park island and the main story trying to get as many dinosaurs off the island as possible should have been better. Capturing the dinosaurs was a big part of the Lost World, but in this muddy puddle of a film, the entire endeavour is treated like a shopping montage. Also, the story can fast forward and get off the island. And what better way to mark this transition than to have us witness a poor innocent Brontosaurus get consumed by the molten lava as Isla Nublar sinks. It's laughably lazy and a weak attempt to tug at heartstrings. As you hear this unknown animal moan through the ash clouds, you can imagine the writers expecting their day of work is done, only to realise they have another hour of a movie to write, and so they latch on a dumb auction horror mansion plot. Number 2. Save Martha in Batman vs Superman. Batman vs Superman was such a busy film. It had so many spinning plates in motion, something eventually had to give. Prior to Batman and Superman's big boss fight, there needed to be a friction between the two, and we as an audience needed to see justification for their hostility. But these two also needed a reason to forge an alliance, and the fact that their mothers have the same name is a neat coincidence, but it's also the most transient thing. When a battered Batman gains the upper hand on Superman, he's ready to plunge a kryptonite spear into the alien god, but Superman screams his mother's name and Batman stops. Instead of Superman pleading for his life, what would have worked better would have been the other way around. Superman didn't want to fight Batman to begin with, and it would have made a better character moment if Batman relented instead. The Martha moment in Batman vs Superman was a necessary annoyance. Number 1. Somehow Palpatine returned in Star Wars Episode 9 The Rise of Skywalker. Imagine getting the opportunity to write a Star Wars film. You'd be so ecstatic about the job, you'd work on that entire story and polish off those points until it was the Citizen Kane of science fiction. Sadly though, some people just aren't that enthusiastic, and even sadder is they're the ones in the lucky position. If there's one thing Star Wars fans can agree on about the new trilogy, it was that they were made with a cynical cash grab mindset, and as such the twists and turns of the films, especially Episode 9, were done with very little thought. The twist that Palpatine had been alive all along might have been an interesting reveal, but it comes up in the opening crawl text and the film makes a very flimsy attempt to explain his return. This effort and attitude made by the filmmakers trickles throughout, with the other poor and shameless story beats that echo throughout Episode 9. When news gets round to the rebels, the expressions on their faces seem less like concern and more like frustration.